As some of you know, I recently put out a video analyzing a sequence between Dake and Kadi from the 2020 Olympics. The video ended up getting a lot of engagement, including a lot of really insightful comments. In this video, I want to offer a few additional thoughts on Kadi's overhook Metzger counter. Before we get back into it, I actually want to begin by going back to a sequence that Dake had with another tough Russian wrestler named Ahmed Gadzhimagomedov from 2018 Worlds. Take a look. Now, if you're familiar with the Kadi Dake sequence from my recent video, the beginning of this clip between Dake and Gadzi should look familiar. Let's highlight a few similarities. Similarity 1. Dake gets in on a lower body attack. So he's gonna shoot in, single leg on his left side. You can see he brings his left hand close to the ankle here, which brings us to similarity 2. The opponent is gonna get this overhook, and they're gonna use the overhook to pull Dake's arm that's attacking their lower body up to their upper body here. So he uses the overhook, sprawling with the legs, pulling up with the overhook. And they're gonna pull him into this underhook seatbelt position. Which brings us to similarity 3. And this is gonna actually be a little different in the sense that this is on the left side, this underhook's on the left side, whereas against Kadi it's gonna be on the right. But nonetheless, similarity 3, Dake cinches his arms. You can't see it quite yet, but we'll see it in a second. Dake gets the body lock. He locks his hands. And here is similarity 4. The Metzger counter. So Gadzi goes for it here. It's not gonna work in this clip, but it's interesting that he does go for it. It's a similar motion. He's going for that outside leg. And you can see him attempt to scoop it there. And right there, it's gonna fail. Dake keeps his lock, starts circling behind. Fast forward a little bit there. Keeps his hips very tight at this point. He's gonna arch into this beautiful 4-point throw. That's gonna win him the match via tech, and then he would go on to win the finals right after this to win his first world championship. Let's take another look at the Kadi Dake sequence again, slowed down. So before we get into the differences between the two clips, let's just refresh those similarities again. So we've got the lower body attack, Dake's ankle pick. We've got the overhook, the opponent pulling on the overhook, sprawling with the leg to pull Dake off of the leg onto the upper body here. We've got the body lock grip, so those are all the same. And then we've got the Metzger counter. But this time it works much better than the last clip. And why is that? From what I can tell, there are two primary differences in why the move works for Kadi and doesn't work for Gadzi. So right here is a still image of just before both attempt the Metzger. And so I want to focus on a couple things. So first thing I want to focus on is what I'm going to call the hip gap. So that's the gap between the opponent's hips, so Dake's hips in this case, and then Gadzi's hips. So I'm drawing a line between them. And you can see there's a pretty significant gap between their hips. Dake's hips are back, Gadzi's hips are back, and there's a lot of room there. Now you're going to contrast that with the space between Dake's hips in this clip and then Kadi's hips, and there's very little space in this one. So that's one thing. Another thing is the angle of the spine. So you look at Kadi's spine, relatively vertical. So that's the angle that you generally want to be in when you're lifting something. Whereas if you look at Gadzi's spine here, much more horizontal. So not optimum. So the space between the hips and then also the angle of the spine, not optimum to lift a leg in this case. Whereas here we have very little space, and then we have a nice strong position of the back. So that's going to be one significant difference between the clips. The second big difference between the clips is the timing of the lift. So if we go back to Kadi here, Dake gets in on the leg, he pulls it up to the seatbelt position. I want you to look at the timing of this Metzger attempt here. So it's going to happen right here. So as it happens, before it happens, Dake's actually going to be on the feet. So right here, Dake's hips are back. Remember the hip gap? So his hips are back. He's got a nice sturdy base on both feet. And that's when the attempt happens. And so the combination, like we talked about, the spine position, the hip gap, and then also just the timing of it, Dake's in a really sturdy position here. He's got his weight on both feet. He's gonna be able to fairly easily sprawl that leg back. So he's maintaining the body lock here. He's driving the upper body away, and then he's kicking, sprawling his right leg back. And that counter pressure is gonna strip the grip, as you can see right here. And now let's contrast that with the Kadi clip again. So I want you to watch, I really want you to focus on Dake's left leg. So that's going to be the leg that Kadi ends up lifting. That's the outside leg. So here Dake's in. He's going to take a step with his left leg. And he's hopping on it here. And you can see he's never sturdy on that leg. It continues to hop. And it's hopping again when Kadi picks it up. So it's light. There's an off-balancing effect here, and let's see how that happens exactly. It's going to be a very deliberate counter by Kadi. So he's got his left overhook. I want you to watch the hip position here. Some people mentioned this in the comments. It was a good point. So Kadi's going to win the inside position with his left leg. By the way, Kadi wins the inside position too. So that by itself won't guarantee this counter. But that allows Kadi to put some pressure on his overhook. He's hipping into his overhook. And that's going to off-balance Dake. So right away, before Dake's able to get to his feet or ever get in a sturdy position, there's this hip in right there. There's the first one. So it's subtle. You can see it here. And because Dake doesn't want to let go of his body lock, he doesn't want to unlock his hands, his means of keeping his base is not his left hand on the mat, it's his left foot on the mat. So as he's off balance, he has to keep hopping that foot to maintain his balance. And as he does that, Kadi's gonna grab it here. So again, just very deliberate hipping in, seeing that foot off balanced, and then grabbing it. So I mentioned in the previous video how strong he was to be able to lift Dake off both feet. But I want to rescind that slightly. I think it's still strength involved, but it's very much timing. It's like if you try a foot sweep, if you try the sweep when the foot is firmly planted, it won't work. But if you time it while the foot is moving, while there's less weight on it, that's when you can kick the foot out. It's the same thing with lifting a leg. If you try to lift a leg while there's a lot of weight on it, it's difficult. But here it's still hopping. So there's not much weight on it at this point. And Kadi's gonna hoist it up. One other element I want to mention, and that is the step out point. So in freestyle, if your opponent forces you to step out, the opponent that initiated the action gets a point. And so it's something that I think was on his mind here. So as Kadi's hipping into him, Dake is stepping that foot deliberately in a way that so he doesn't step out of bounds. He gets pretty close there. We don't have a great angle to see it, but the ref doesn't call it. And this is when he's gonna pick it up. So let's say they were in the middle of the mat. I'm not sure Dake would have stepped in the same circular direction. He may have, but I'm going to speculate that this played a role too. So Kadi's really playing the edge of the mat well, and Dake kind of fell into his trap by trying to stay in. So to conclude, we have two similar counter attempts with very different results. To make this overhook Metzger counter work, try to create an off-balancing effect that keeps your opponent's outside leg relatively unstable and light. And make sure you maintain strong positioning for the lift with your hips in and back closer to vertical. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you aren't already, please be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where I put out daily breakdown clips and lately a lot of Olympic wrestling content. Take care.